left field, and Kike has done it again.
Posey hits a base hit in the center. The Giants score 2 in the 10th to win it 5-4.
It's the Giants and the Dodgers. The rivalry continues. It's time for Dodger baseball. Live from Dodger Stadium, Sportsnet LA presents the Dodgers as they take on the San Francisco Giants. Hi, everybody, and a very pleasant Tuesday evening to you, wherever you may be. We're at Dodger Stadium for the Dodgers and the Giants, the first of 9 before the season ends. The Dodgers right now, 1 game in front of the Giants. Giants arrive hurting a bit. They've lost 6 of the last 8. The Giants have won 6 of 10 against the Dodgers, but when you look at the 4 Dodger victories, 3 of them belong to Clayton Kershaw. The other one to Kenta Maeda, who's on the mound tonight. He beat the Giants back in April. Maeda has a 3-game winning streak, and the Dodgers have won 5 straight of Maeda's games. For the Dodgers, they'll go up against Madison Bumgarner. He is 13-8 lifetime against the Dodgers, 8-5 here at Dodger Stadium. For the Giants, they've lost 4 straight games started by Bumgarner against the Dodgers, who hasn't won since back on September the 1 of 2015. As far as the league is concerned, however, the Giants have won 2 in a row, led by Bumgarner, after losing 5 straight of his starts. Tomorrow, Johnny Cueto will be on the mound against Rich Hill, and for that, we'll be waiting for a good ball game tonight, and a whole lot more right after this. you, wherever you may be. Thank goodness we're at Dodger Stadium, and it's the Giants against the Dodgers. You can't really ask for much more, especially on a beautiful summer's evening. Beautiful blue sky up above, not a thought of rain, although most of us in this part of the country would wish we'd get a little rain. But for Dave Roberts, he arrives with a ball club that is in first place, one game in front of the Giants. If you go back to June the 27th, Bruce Bochy and company were leading the Dodgers by 8. So it's been a big battle, and actually all things have started on the 27th of June. That's when the Giants, on that date, were leading by 8 and went 19-28. And the Dodgers went the other way, 28-19. And that difference of 9 games shows up from a -8 to a +1 for the Dodgers. Here's Bruce Bochy's lineup, and it's formidable. Denard Span leading off in center field. Angel Pagan in left. Brandon Belt at first, and Buster Posey behind the plate. Brandon Crawford at short. One of our favorite players, Hunter Pence, draped on the railing. He'll be in right field. Eduardo Nunez at third. Joe Panik at second. And Madison Bumgarner on the mound. On the mound for the Dodgers, Kenta Maeda, and he's been doing a wonderful job. In his last 7 starts, he has gone 5-1, limiting his opponents to a .211 batting average. Also, in his 12 starts here, he's 4-5, and he is certainly leading qualifying National League rookie starting pitchers with 12 wins. So Maeda, who beat the Giants in April here, going to work now on Denard Span. Denard Span, an even 6'2", born in Washington, D.C., lives in Tampa, and had a couple of big years with the Minnesota Twins. Left-hand batter has a look at the pitch for ball 1, and we are underway. He also played, of course, with the Nationals, and an all-around great athlete. He was, among other things, an all-state wide receiver. So, Denard Span to lead it off. The temperature 75 degrees. Maeda's next pitch, slider missing, and he's in a hole now to Span. 2 balls and no strikes. Mountains edge clearly in the background, flags hanging limply, hardly a zephyr to stir them, and a crowd watching a Giant-Dodger game. It is the 11th meeting of the year between the two clubs and the first of the remaining 9. Spahn takes another one low and inside, and 3-0 the count to Denard Span. Span, a couple years ago, had a 29-game hitting streak. He has over 1,000 hits in his career as Pence and Panik look on. Though Denard trying to get something started, Giants have lost 2 in a row and 6 of the last 8. 3-0 pitch on the way. That's in for a strike, and the count 3-1. So Maeda behind in the count to a very hot hitter. Span hitting .464 at the plate in his last 18 games. The 3-1 pitch to the left-hand batter taken for another strike. So Maeda down 3-0, comes back 3-2. You have Span followed by the switch hitter, Pagan, followed by the left-hand batter Belt. So Kenta tugs at the bill of the cap, looks in to get a sign. Right-hander taking his time into the windup. 3-2 pitch to Span, swung on, hit foul down the left field line and out of play. Last year, Span had some trouble with back and hip inflammation, but as we told you, he has piled over 1,000 hits. He had that 29-game hitting streak, left-handed all the way, and does a very good job in center field. Played in the 2008 Beijing Olympics. 3-2 coming up. Denard rating, and the 3-2 pitch swung on. Line drive base hit to right field, over to try and cut it off for Seguin, and he does a good job to hold Span to a single to right field. So going from 3-0 to 3-2, and then Span wins the battle with a line drive single to right. Angel Pagan is coming up as Seguin does a good job to cut it off. Angel Pagan had to leave the game last Saturday after the third inning. We had a right groin tightness. They thought maybe he couldn't play, but here he is. First pitch to him, change up in for a strike, and the count 0-1. Angel Pagan, good, solid, all-around ball player. Hit safely in a team-high 18 straight games, which right now is also the longest active streak in the major league. Strike one pitch coming up, and that's taken in the dirt. Nice block by Grandal, and the count 1-1 strike. Plate umpire Rob Drake handling the work behind Grandal. Pagan, switch hitter, batting left-handed. The left-hand hitting Belt on deck. Pagan waiting. 1-1 strike. Denard Span off the bag at first. Maeda delivers high. 2-1 the count. Giants have been struggling with the bat since the All-Star break. Crawford's hit 258. Nunez 250. Pence 229. Belt 213. Panic 208. Even Buster Posey has had a bad back, and he's been struggling with one home run since the break. 2-1 pitch, instead a throw to first. Dodgers right now concerned about a possible hit and run play. Pagan has struck out only 52 times, and with Span's speed, they might very well play. Span has a dozen stolen bases. We'll watch. He does not go, and the ball is slapped, sinking to left field. Backhanding it on the run is Kendrick, and getting back to first is Denard Span. So Pagan lines out to left. Let's take a look at the Dodgers with the leather. Gonzalez and Culberson, Seager and Turner, Kendrick, Hernandez and Seguin, and Grandal handling Maeda. By the way, you look up and you say Culberson. Yes, the Dodgers put Brett Anderson and Scott Kazmir on the 15-day disabled list. They sent out Josh Fields, and they brought up Luis Avilan, Charlie Culberson, and right-hander Ross Stripling from Oklahoma City. So Kazmir, with a stiff neck and back, will have to sit it out for about 2 weeks. Brandon Belt, normally a power hitter, he's been struggling, as we mentioned. In 122 at-bats, Belt has struck out 47 times. That's given him only a .213 batting average. No doubt trying to do a lot of the hard work himself, and it's not working. 1-0 strikes. Maeda delivers. That's lifted to left field. Playable. Kendrick moves to his left. Tagging up is Span. Catch is made. Span is going to go halfway and then get back. Good play by Kendrick and a heads-up try by Span. So after a leadoff single, Pagan flies to left. Belt flies to left. And the batter is Buster Posey. Posey has perked up considerably. Although he's had a bad back, he's hit just one home run since the All-Star break. Nevertheless, over the last 18 games, hitting .323. So Posey has a dozen home runs, looking for a 60th run batted in. And Maeda now has 2 down. Span at first, and as we told you, Span has stolen 12 out of 17. So we'll see if they run him with 2 out. Maeda set at the belt, ready and deals, and the first one in for a strike, fastball, and the count 0-1. Since the All-Star break, the Giants are 29th in home run. They've hit only 26. Dodgers have hit 51. Has to be concerned for Bruce Bochy. Strike one, pitch low. 1-1 strike. We told you about the Giants struggling. The Dodgers, on the other hand, have gone wild. Seager hitting .385, Kendrick .325, Gonzalez and Turner .320. So it goes. The 1-1 pitch on the way. Instead, throw to first. Dodgers had a very strange and rare road trip. They began the trip by scoring 15 runs in Philadelphia. They concluded the trip winning 18 runs in Cincinnati, only the 15th to ever open and close a road trip like that. The 1-1 pitch to Posey is taken outside, and a 2-1 count. So they didn't play 2-1 with Pagan, with Span at first. Let's see if they play hit and run 2-1 with Posey. On deck, Brandon Crawford. No score, Wood just starting. Posey back up, bent slightly at the knees and waist. We'll look at Span as he takes his lead, and Maeda decides to get off the rubber. Before the All-Star break, the Giants had the best record in the major leagues, 57-33. And boy, have they been in a nosedive ever since. But still one game back of the Dodgers. 2-1 pitch, Span not going, a little ground ball wide of third as Turner flips it over the first in time. So the Giants played very conservatively in the first inning. Twice they had a 2-1 count to play hit and run, preferred not to do it, so they get a leadoff single and nothing else. Madison Bumgarner going to work, no score. No score. Giants get a leadoff base hit and leave him at first. Let's take a look now at Dave Roberts' lineup. You might be surprised. Kike Hernandez leading off in center field. However, Kike has a lot of success against Madison Bumgarner, including 3 home runs and 4 doubles. And he'll be followed by Howie Kendrick and Corey Seager, Justin Turner at third, Adrian Gonzalez at first, Yasmani Grandal the catcher, Rob Segedin in right field, Charlie Culberson at second base, and Kenta Maeda on the mound. The amazing Madison Bumgarner. He is 12-7 with a great earned run average of 2.2. He is 8-5 against the Dodgers, 13-8 lifetime. And if you're a left-handed batter and you are in the starting lineup against Bumgarner, then you are a very fine player. Left-handers are hitting 169 against Bumgarner, and in the lineup you have Seager and Gonzalez along with Grandal, who switches. So as Seager looks on from the top step, Kike Hernandez checks in, and Madison Bumgarner with a record of 12-7 ready to go to work. Big left-hander out of North Carolina, and his first pitch in for a strike, and the count 0-1. Kike Hernandez hitting .625. He has 10 hits and 16 at-bats against Bumgarner, including 3 home runs and 4 doubles. Big slow curveball in for a strike, and the count 0-2. For Bumgarner, well, you can talk a long time about his abilities. Left-hander looks down the barrel to get a sign. 27 years old, flips a slider in the dirt, and the count 1 ball and 2 strikes. Bumgarner has allowed a hit this year in the clutch rarely. Hitters are batting .122 against him with runners in scoring position. Left-handers are hitting just .169 period. The 1-2 pitch on the way to Kike. Little cutter for a strike. Half breaking ball, a just late break, and it caught the outside corner, and Hernandez goes down. So if Kike was looking for a fastball, it was not going to be that at bat. So 1 away. Howie Kendrick checking in. Hard to believe, and one of the problems the Giants had following the break as Howie checks in, hitting .277, but for the last 11 almost .400, and takes a strike. Coming out of the break, it's hard to believe the Giants lost 5 straight Madison Bumgarner starts, 4 of which were tough. 4-1, 3-2, 2-1, 1-0. He works a fastball away and a 1 ball 1 strike count. However, now he has won 2 in a row. Won that wild 10-7 win over the Mets. Remember, he fell behind. Justin Reggiano hit a grand slam home run. Kendrick fouls it off, and then the Giants came back to take a lead by a home run by Madison Bumgarner, who has 14 home runs, remember, in his career. So they certainly have an extra bat in the lineup. Waiting on deck, Corey Seager. Kendrick waiting, a little ground ball to the right side. Panic plenty of time. Picks it up and makes the play. And we have 2 down in the first inning. Chance now to take up the buy-in. And the Giants defensively go this way. Belt and Panic, Crawford and Nunez, Pagan, Span and Pence. Posey handling Bumgarner. Corey Seager, who is off in another world right now. Originally, when he first came up, they said something about he's 22, but he is an old soul. Well, he is playing like he's been in the league for 10 years. So Corey checking in. 4 hits yesterday, has hit safely in 13 straight, and fouls the first pitch away. 0-1. Seager tied Glenn Wright, the most single-season home runs by a shortstop in Dodger franchise history. Seager just 0 for 3 against Bumgarner. Madison's fastball high and in. 1 ball and 1 strike. I would guess the thinnest margin with which to seal a World Series title is they get the last out of the 7th game with a potential tying run at 3rd. Only 3 pitchers have ever done that. There's a drive to the gap in right center, carrying well towards the wall, bouncing against the wall. Seager advances to second with a double. He is hit in 14 straight. So a long double by Corey Seager, and that carries to the wall in deep right center. Pitch was up and apparently right out over the plate. So Corey doubles, and that'll bring up the right-hand hitting Justin Turner. Well, we were talking about Bumgarner and the last out in the World Series. Only 3 pitchers have ever done that. The Cardinals' Harry Burkeen in 1946. He got Tom McBride of the Red Sox to ground out. Ralph Terry in 62, getting Willie McCovey of the Giants on a line drive to second baseman Bobby Richardson. And 52 years later, Madison did it with the tying run at 3rd and 2 out, and he got Salvador Perez. The first pitch to Turner, in for a strike, and the count 0-1. Justin, 306 in the last 18 games to lift his average to 275. Bumgarner out of his stretch. Left-hander comes back, slow breaking ball, grounded into left field, base hit. Seager to the plate. The throw is going to be way wide, and the Dodgers lead 1-0. For Madison Bumgarner, in all honesty, with a runner at second and 2 out, that looked like a big lollipop. A big, slow breaking ball, and Turner just had to wait on it, and it finally got there, and he grounded it into left field. So the Dodgers take a 1-0 lead. Poor throw by Pagan. Turner driving in the run. Dodgers out in front 1-0. Now, Adrian Gonzalez, with a 15-game hitting streak, takes a fastball away for ball 1. Remember, Adrian coming off the home run trip yesterday when he hit 3. Hit 5 on the whole trip. So Turner at first, 2 down, 1-0 Dodgers first inning. Bumgarner another fastball for a strike. 1-1. So if you're kneeling on deck and you see that slow curveball that he served up to Justin Turner, in case you were looking slow curve, Bumgarner comes back with 2 fastballs. 1-1. Madison ready, and the 1-1 pitch on the way, breaking ball away, ball 2. So a couple of things surprising. Number 1, the left-hand hitters batting 169, and Seager doubled. Number 2, he has rarely allowed a hit in a clutch, and Turner just did that. 2-1 the count. 1-0 Dodgers first inning. Madison ready. A look at Turner. Back to his hitter, and that's off the plate away. Infield overshifted. Panic about 15 to 20 feet out in right field. Brandon Crawford almost behind the bag, but certainly straight up the middle. So Adrian waiting. 1-0 Dodgers, 2 out. The 3-1 pitch coming up with Yasmani Grandal on deck. The pitch to Gonzalez, swung on. That's going to be hit to the gap in left center for a base hit. Stopping at second is Turner. So the Dodgers going right after Bumgarner with 2 out. Seager double to right center. Turner singles to left. Gonzalez singles to center. And Boschi's wondering what in the world is going on with my talented left-hander. Gonzalez just went down to get a pitch, maybe borderline at the knees for a base hit. 3 hits for a run. Seager is in cooling off. Meanwhile, Yasmani Grandal batting right-handed against the left-hander checking in. 2 out, first inning. Dodgers lead 1-0. Grandal hitting .273 right-handed. Power is on the left. He swings, fouls it away. When he's hitting right-handed, he has 2 home runs and a good .273 batting average. When he's hitting left, he's batting .226, but he has 19 home runs. So with 21 home runs, checks in at the plate. Dodgers jump out in front 1-0 on 3 hits here in the first inning. Turner at second, Gonzalez at first, and Bumgarner out of a stretch. Madison's next pitch foul back. 0-2. Nice catch in the stand. No balls and 2 strikes. Bumgarner, 8 wins and 5 losses in Dodger Stadium. Pitches well. 2.4 earned run average. 1-0 Dodgers first inning. Madison Bumgarner checking. Very deliberate. Looks at the runners. Comes back to the hitter a little high. So 1-2 the count. Bumgarner after a long look into Buster Posey. The 1-2 pitch. Slider down and in. 2-2 the count. Hernandez struck out. Kendrick grounded out. Seager doubled to right center. He's hit in 14 straight. Turner singled him in. Gonzalez singled to center. He's hit in 16 straight. So deuce is wild here. 2 balls, 2 strikes, 2 out, 2 on. Bumgarner's breaking ball is grounded to short. Crawford looks at second, throws to first, and the inning is over. So the Dodgers jump on Bumgarner. Corey Seager despite a left-handed batter, drills one into right center for a double. By the time Pence could get it back, Justin Turner got a slow curveball, banged it into left, scoring Seager, and at the end of an inning, 1-0 Dodgers. It is a Dodger fan, a Giant fan having fun together. Right now, Dodgers leading 1-0. Corey Seager does a couple of things. First of all, as a left-handed batter, he doubles against Bumgarner to extend his streak to 14 straight. And then Justin Turner comes up and does something that doesn't usually happen. Comes up with a clutch hit with 2 out against Bumgarner to drive in the run. So here come the Giants now trying to bounce back. It'll be Brandon Crawford, Hunter Pence, and then Eduardo Nunez. Crawford hitting .274, starting to perk up. He's had a good month, hitting .299 in August. Crawford, left-hand batter, and Maeda ready to go to work. How good is Brandon Crawford? Well, the Giants earlier this year gave him a contract worth $75 million. So the man from UCLA is certainly a big man in San Francisco. 0-1 to Brandon. Maeda ready and comes back. Fastball sinks low and away. 1 ball and 1 strike. Brandon Crawford, 8 hits in his last 22 at bats, and that would include 3 doubles and a triple. 1-1 pitch on the way. Crawford hits a comebacker. Maeda stays with it and throws him out. So a nice defensive play by Kenta, and we have 1 out in the 2nd inning, and the batter will be Hunter Pence.
Fielder number 8, Hunter Pence.
Hunter Pence lost a good chunk of the year. He missed 48 games with a severe right hamstring strain. Last 8 games he's perked up. He's hit .313. Just did come off the DL July 30th. So he's really just coming back. Maeda ready. Hunter shies away, takes a strike, and the count 0-1. Pence, who never stopped moving, constantly. Now the strike 1 pitch on the way. Maeda delivers, and that's low. When you look at Hunter Pence, you realize what a steady player he is. In his career, .285 at home, .282 away, .285 against left, .283 against right-hand pitching, .289 in the day, .281 at night, and .295 with runners in scoring position. So he's a heck of a player, and they really missed him until coming back in August. 6'4", 215 out of Arlington, Texas. Pence waiting. The 1-2 pitch on the way. Maeda hesitates, delivers a little nubber to the left of the mound. Maeda goes back to get it and throws him out. So we have 2 down here in the second inning, and Eduardo Nunez coming up. 2 assists by Kenta Maeda here in the second inning. So here comes Nunez. You remember that the Giants traded away Matt Duffy, who had such a great year for them at third base. So they needed another third baseman, and they've come up with a good one. Hitting .289, All-Star while playing with Minnesota, 13 home runs, 56 runs batted in. He was a switch hitter, but he is quick. And he hits a high fly ball into left center. TK is there for the third out. So the Giants go quietly, a leadoff single, and the next 6 retired. And at the end of an inning and a half, 1-0 Dodgers. Bottom of the second inning, 1-0 favor the Dodgers. Maeda made only 8 pitches to retire the side in the top half of the second. So Bumgarner right back out there, and his first hitter is Rob Segedin, takes a strike. Segedin followed by Charlie Culberson and then Kenta Maeda. Segedin joining the fun. The 7 home runs the Dodgers hit yesterday in Cincinnati. Hit his first. Andrew Toles, he hit 1 as well to join the celebration. 1 ball and 1 strike to count to Rob, playing right field. Bumgarner ready, and the big left-hander's 1-1. Fastball is whacked to left field. That one is going to go out for the home run. That is the 20th home run that Madison Bumgarner has given up this year. And the Dodgers lead 2-0. Second line drive home run. Just cleared the left field wall, but you knew it was going to carry it. So a rude awakening for Madison Bumgarner. He certainly knows the importance of the game, and he's given up a run in the first inning and now a home run in the second. And the batter is Charlie Culberson. Culberson, right-hand batter, and a breaking ball misses. Ball 1, 1-0. Charlie just called up. Dodgers making more personnel moves, As we mentioned, both Brett Anderson and Scott Kazmir have gone on the DL. Charlie just called up today. Right-hand hitter swings right through a breaking ball, and the count 1-1. Luis Avilan, the left-hander, right-hander Ross Stripling. Brett Anderson on the right side of Clayton Kershaw, who's feeling pretty chipper so far in his attempt to come back. 1-1 pitch, pull foul right into the Dodger dugout. That was in and gone. Take another look at Gadden. No doubt about it. He got a ball up right out over the plate and hits number 20 against Madison Bumgarner. Madison ready, holding the ball out in front of his chest. Now to his windup. And the pitch to Charlie swung on a breaking ball, and he was late. And the count 3 strikes, down you go. So a home run followed by a strikeout, followed by Kenta Maeda coming up. Maeda, right-hand batter, checking in. He has 5 hits. He has a home run, remember, and 3 runs batted in. He has struck out about 25% of the time and takes ball 1. 1-0 to Kenta. Dodgers out in front, 2-0, bottom of the 2nd inning. Bumgarner's fastball, and that misses low and inside. 2 balls and no strike. So Bum, as they call him, struggling here. Gave up 3 hits in the 1st inning, and now a home run in the 2nd. 2-0 pitch on the way. That's in for a strike at 90. 2-1 the count. Bumgarner, a big man. He's 6'5", about 235. Flips one in that's pulled on the ground to third. Nunez up with it, throws him out. And we have 2 down in the 2nd inning. And Kike Hernandez coming up. Hernandez struck out leading off the ball game. Kike doesn't play very much. When you don't play, you can't play. Hitting 195, but he does have 6 home runs, and 3 of them are against Madison Bumgarner in his career. 14 runs batted in. 2 down, 2nd inning, a run in, and the Dodgers lead 2-0. Line drive over the head of Coach Chris Woodard and foul down the line. 0-1 the count. Bumgarner, who gave up a leadoff double to Corey Seager. Leadoff meaning the first left-hand batter that he faced. That in itself was a bad sign for the big left-hander. He had allowed only 6 extra base hits to left-hand batters all year. Left-handers were hitting just 169, and Seager buried a double in right center. Slow breaking ball for a strike. Kike is still looking for a fastball, and he has not gotten it. 0-2. All breaking balls, some slower than others. Strike 2 pitch on the way. There's the fastball, pop foul, and out of play. Still 0-2. KK a little late after looking at all those slow breaking balls. Just did get a little bit of the fastball. 0-2 the count. Buster Posey shuffling cards behind the plate. And the fastball low and away. 1 ball and 2 strikes the count to Kike Hernandez. Howie Kendrick waiting on deck. Bumgarner comes back. Big ground foul outside of third. Game 1 of the 3-game series. And what a week this will be. The Dodgers in first place. trying to keep off the Giants, and then will be severely challenged on the weekend with the Chicago Cubs. Bumgarner ready. 2-0 Dodgers, second inning. 1-2 pitch, breaking ball, chased and missed, and down goes Kike. So the home run by Rob Segedin, however, added to the run that the Dodgers got in the first inning. Segedin, a line drive over the left field wall, and at the end of 2, it's 2-0 Dodgers. So you rob Segedin, you hit a home run yesterday in Cincinnati. You come home before a big crowd, and you hit a home run against Madison Bumgarner. And your wife is expecting a baby any minute. Oh, life is good. Meanwhile, off speed to Joe Panik for a strike. The talented second baseman, he's been out for a while, but he has hit safely 10 of his last 11, hitting .246. He has a little streak going against the Dodgers. Strike one pitch, Joe takes low and away. He has scored a run in 7 straight games against the Dodgers. Willie Mays, Barry Bonds, they've done it. And now Joe has done it. 2-0 Dodgers, top of the third. And the 1-1 fastball, a little low, 2-1. So Panik, then Bumgarner, and remember, Bumgarner is a very good hitter. Although Bumgarner's philosophy, I don't come up there to hit ground balls. I come up there to hit a home run. That's as simple as that. Well, he has 14 of them. 2-1 pitch on the way, swung on, little ground ball by the mound. Charlie Cuperson can't make the play, dropping the ball while in the act of throwing. So Panik will get an infield single, I'm sure, and Madison Bumgarner coming up.
Madison Bumgarner.
Madison Bumgarner is such a good hitting pitcher. As Seager says something to cheer up Charlie Culberson. Bumgarner was playing against Oakland in Oakland. So naturally the designated hitter, right? Nope. Bruce Bochy let him pitch and hit. So then the team went to New York. And they said, okay, are you going to let Bumgarner bat against the Yankees? And Bruce said, no, it's too hot. I don't want my pitcher running around out there. But he's back in the National League. Easy decision as Madison waits at the plate. Maeda set at the bell, leading 2-0. And they pitch to Bumgarner, taken on the inside corner for a strike, and he's in a hole 0-2. Bumgarner has 3 home runs, 7 runs batted in, strikes out a little less than half the time. As we said, in his mind, he is only up there to hit a home run, and he tries to elevate any pitch he can. Strike 2 pitch on the way. Maeda delivers, and that one's low, so 1-2 the count. Bumgarner at 6-5, giving Maeda a good strike zone. 2 runs, 4 hits for the Dodgers. No runs, 2 hits for the Giants. Leadoff hitter in the first, leadoff hitter in the third. Now the 1-2 pitch on the way. Bumgarner swings and misses, and down he goes. Strikeout number 1 for Kenta Maeda. And a reminder, the Dodgers and the Cubs this Friday through Sunday. So for tickets, visit Dodgers.com/tickets. Yeah, it's one thing to be mesmerized by the Giants, but what a following act. The Cubs. Chicago at the start of the day has won 79 games, one away from the Big 80. The Cardinals 12.5 games behind the Cubs. Showing bunt. Denard Span takes outside, ball 1. Span singled in the first inning. Roberto Kelly may be hanging out a sign from the third base coaching box. Giants coming off a poor homestand. They went 3-7. Giants are very consistent, home and road. 1-0 pitch on the way, a look, and it's low, ball 2. Giants at home 35-28. On the road, Bruce's club 33-28. They actually have a better record within the division, 31-18, as Jeff Samardzija entertains. 2-0 the count. Yeah, they ever do the Musketeers. Jeff Samardzija certainly could play one of them, probably D'Artagnan. The 2-0 pitch in for a strike. I mean, can't you see him? He has that look. Yeah, how about that? Put a little plume in the hat, give him a sword. Yes, sir. The Musketeers are here. 2-1 the count. Denard Span at the plate. Panic at first. Panic has stolen 5. The next pitch is low. 3-1. Well, twice with the hitters. They didn't play 2-1 when Span was the runner. Now we'll see if they run and hit with Span the batter and Panic the runner. It's 2-0 in favor of the Dodgers. Angel Pagan on deck. The Maeda checking. Panic inching away, is not going, and it's inside, ball 4. So the Giants now with the tying runs aboard, 1 out, and Angel Pagan, who flied to left field, coming up. Pagan with those dead serious eyes. I can imagine if you're a pitcher and he's looking out at you, those eyes coming out from under the helmet. It almost looks like he's going to stare his way on base. Angel Anthony Pagan from Puerto Rico. Two on, 1 out, time. Pagan not ready. Pagan has an 18-game hitting streak. Corey Seager earlier this year had a 19-game hitting streak. Adrian Gonzalez has a 16-game hitting streak. Angel has a pitch in the dirt, kicked way off, and by the time Grandal goes back to get it, there are runners at second and third. I've always noticed from Maeda, he will do something and say something that was my fault. He crossed up his catcher, and as soon as he walked off the mound, he fisted his chest as if saying, my fault. It's going to be a pass ball, but you know what? I don't think so. I really think the scorer has to look at that again, because Yasmani Grandal was expecting one pitch, and that was the last pitch that he expected. So I would not be surprised at all if that's a wild pitch, and it should be. Obviously, Maeda crossed up his catcher. So the tying runs are at second and third with one out. That was a huge play, and we'll see what Pagan can do with it now. Angel waiting. He flied to left field in the first inning. Maeda peering in to get a sign. Now backs off the rubber. Yeah, the first gesture Maeda made coming off the mound after that pitch went awry, he hit his chest with his fist, just to say, that was my fault. So second and third, one out, third inning, 2-0 Dodgers, and Pagan staring out there at Maeda. Off-speed pitch, and that's outside. And again, Grandal a little unhappy. He's going out to talk to Maeda again. So they are certainly not on the same page. Look at how that thing broke. And on that play, Grandal makes a great save. And now Honeycutt saying, wait a minute, my men are not on the same page. So Grandal of Spanish descent, Maeda Japanese, and they need an interpreter. Will Ireton is out there with Rick Honeycutt. So there's two pitches in a row that absolutely surprised Grandal. One of them was ruled a pass ball, but I'm pretty sure they're going to change that to a wild pitch. 1 ball and 1 strike to count, 1 out. And you can see Maeda say, okay. Now we will see if they're okay. Span, who runs very well at second. Panik is at third. And remember that streak that Panik has? He scored in 7 straight games against the Dodgers. Awkward swing by Angel Pagan. Badly fooled on that pitch. 1-2. Meanwhile, Maeda is making a lot of pitches now. He's up to 41. Second and third, 1 out. And the 1-2 pitch to Pagan. Swung on, line to center, coming up is Kike. It's a base hit. The run will score, and Span goes to third. And it's 2-1 in favor of the Dodgers. So Pagan, a line drive single to center. And so Joe Panik has done something that I don't believe has ever been done against the Dodgers. He has scored a run in 8 straight Giant Dodger games. And it's Pagan who drives him in. Denard Span is now at third. And here's Brandon Belt. First and third, 1 out. Belt flied to left field. Brandon 14 home runs, and he has 4 sacrifice flies. The outfield is deep. They've loaded up the right side of the infield. First and third, 1 out. Here comes Maeda. A fastball swung on and missed. It was up between the letters and the shoulders. 0-1 the count. Belt strikes out a lot. He's already struck out 114 times, and the Dodgers trying to put him down. Waiting on deck, Buster Posey. It all started on that ground ball that Culberson couldn't handle. Strike 1 pitch, high and away. 1-1. First and third, 1 out. 2-1 Dodgers. 2 runs, 4 hits for the Dodgers. 1 run, 3 hits for the Giants. Maeda staring in. Grandal fingers down. And the 1-1 pitch, slow breaking ball in for a strike. A big spinner at 74. 1 ball and 2 strikes. In the inning, Panik on a ground ball up the middle that Culberson could not play. Went for a single. Span walked. Wild pitch or pass ball was ruled pass ball. I think they'll change it. Here's the 1-2 pitch. and that's a little high. And the count 2-2 to Brandon Belt. Maeda trying to think his way out of a tough spot. Belt ranks high up with Posey on deck. He's 4th in walks, 8th in doubles, 8th in on-base percentage. He's walked 80 times. They go with the 114 strikeouts. 2 balls, 2 strikes, and now Belt backs out. All right, Belt back up and waiting. Maeda, runners at the corners, and the 2-2 pitch swung on and missed. In on the hands, shaking his head. Belt walks away empty-handed. A huge out. Pitch is in there and then dropped down. As we look at it from the camera, it was a breaking ball. So Belt strikes out, and now the batter is Buster Posey. Big strikeout for Kenta Maeda. Posey, 12 home runs, 59 runs batted in, grounded out in the first inning. Lusty a favorite wherever he plays, understandably a class act and a marvelously gifted player. Maeda comes to the hitter, and it's hit into center field, base hit. In comes Span, stopping at second is Pagan, and the Giants have caught the Dodgers 2-2. So Span had that big walk, and of course the big play was the failure of Grandal and Maeda. That was like an apple hanging off a tree, a big slow change up, and all Posey had to do was wait. So 3 hits and a walk, plus a questionable settlement between the pitcher and the catcher. 2-2 tie in the 3rd inning. So Bumgarner is even despite being down 2-0 early. Now Crawford hit back to the box in the 2nd inning. Brandon 0 for 1, hitting .274. Pagan at second, Posey at first, and with 2 out, the pitch swung on and missed. 0-1. So Pagan, who had to come in Saturday, leave the game, tightness in the groin, felt well enough to play tonight, and now suddenly he's carrying a tiebreaker at second base. Angel backing away from second. Maeda ready. Strike 1 pitch, and that's a trifle high. 1 ball and 1 strike. So now Maeda has made 50 pitches. He's about 160 pounds, and for him to go a tough 6 innings in the big leagues has been quite a challenge, and he's made 25 pitches in this inning, and he has given up 3 hits and a walk. And again the cross up with Grandal. 1 ball and 1 strike to Brandon Crawford. 1-1 pitch on the way, and that swung on, beaten foul off to the right of the plate. 1-2 the count. Giants left Span in the 1st inning, and they're able to get 2 home here in the 3rd to tie up the game. 2 runs, 4 hits for the Dodgers. 2 runs, 4 hits for the Giants. Giants have done it with singles and a walk. Dodgers have done it with a double, a single, and a home run. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Brandon Crawford. 2 out, 2 in, 2 on. Maeda ready. 1-2 pitch, very high. Another fastball at 89. So we have the deuces again. 2 balls, 2 strikes, 2 on, 2 out, 2 in. So a fistful of deuces, and Maeda with his manager Dave Roberts looking a little worried. Maeda looks in, very deliberate, making sure he's on the same Page has ground ball, and there's a shot up the middle, but it's right to Seager on the bag, and that'll be down. So the Giants, down by 2, scrambled back for 2, and at the end of 2.5 innings, a 2-2 tie. A 2-2 tie. It's obvious to everybody in the ballpark, especially those who have seen a lot of games, that Maeda and Grandal were definitely far off connecting with each other. And Maeda, after listening through the interpreter, leaves the dugout to refresh himself. And Howie Kendrick coming up. Kendrick grounded out in the first inning, 0 for 1, hitting .276. Bumgarner's first pitch, low, ball 1, 1-0. Kendrick has done an incredible job when you realize a second baseman all his career, and done an admirable job in left field. The 1-0 pitch on the way, ground ball to short. Crawford is on it, and just like that, one away. So one down, and here comes the amazing young Corey Seager. Angel Pagan, who singled in the third inning, has hit safely in 19 straight. Adrian Gonzalez, who singled in the first inning, he's hit in 16 straight. Corey, who's doubled in the first inning, has hit in 14 straight. So Pagan right now, with his base hit, is the leader. And here is Seager. 0-1 the count to Corey. Of course, already he's had quite a few streaks. He's had a 19-game hitting streak, 14, which he has now, an 11, a 9, and an 8. Coming off a 4-hit game yesterday. The National Leaguers with the most 4-hit games, Anthony Rizzo, and you will certainly see him on the weekend with the Cubs, and the Dodgers, Howie Kendrick. 1 ball and 1 strike. Big slow curve way out in front of it, 1-2. Madison Bumgarner, as far as his father is concerned, he knows why he was named Madison. Here's the 1-2 pitch, foul back. His father said he thought he should name him Madison because he was reading a headline in the Charlotte Observer about Madison County. Well, that's about 60 miles west of Lenore, where all the Bumgarners live. However, his mom says she noticed the name and it meant the son of a great warrior. There's a looper into left field. Seager really makes you shake your head. That was a bad ball, but it was slow. It was not a fastball, and he was able to just lean over and poke it the other way. Take a look. Way out there, and he just leaned over and pinged it just over the head of Eduardo Nunez. So Seager, after 4 hits yesterday, comes right back with 2 tonight. With 1 out, the batter will be Justin Turner. Dodgers 2 runs, 5 hits against Bumgarner. The Giants 2 runs, 4 hits against Maeda. Bumgarner delivers, flips one a little low. 1-0 the count. Turner got a slow curveball in the first inning and single to left to drive in the run. Seager at first, 1 away. Bumgarner stares at him, now flips one that's banged into right field down the line. Seager is on his way to third. Pence gets it back in, and Bumgarner's in trouble again. So 1 away. Seager pings one to left. Turner whacks one to right, just over the glove of the leaping Brandon Belt. So Seager has 2 hits. Turner is 2 for 2. And here is Gonzalez 1 for 1. So we were pointing out earlier how the Giant hitters have really been struggling, and the Dodger hitters have been feasting. Bumgarner with runners at the corners, working Gonzalez, and that's foul back. 91-mile-an-hour fastball. 0-1 the count. Gonzalez with a 16-game hitting streak. Yasmani Grandal on deck. Bumgarner 12-7. Great earned run average of 2.2, but he's given up 2 already tonight. 1 out. Strike 1 pitch is swung on. Fly ball should be deep enough to get Seager home. It's going to be the left fielder Pagan who throws it into second base as Seager scores, and the Dodgers lead 3-2. Angel Pagan and Denard Span having a little chat. I'm sure Pagan was thinking, I'm going to catch it and just throw into second base. Span might catch it and try to throw to the plate. One way or another, it's an out to left, but it gets a tiebreaker home. Grandal grounded to short in the first inning. Slow breaking ball up and in. Ball 1. 1-0. 3 runs, 6 hits for the Dodgers. 2 runs, 4 hits for the Giants. One ball and no strikes. Bumgarner down 3-2 here in the third inning. Comes back and it's swung on and missed by Grandal. 1-1 the count. So Adrian Gonzalez comes up with the sacrifice fly. Kenta Maeda is back in the club, from the clubhouse to the dugout, and the Dodgers are back out in front. Bumgarner's 1-1 change in nicely. 1-2. Dodgers scored in the first, scored in the second. Giants came back with 2. Dodgers now with a run in the third have scored in each of the first 3 innings and lead again 3-2. Maeda resting, figuring he's had his problems with Grandal. I'm sure a language problem, although you're not talking language, you're talking fingers. 1-2. I mean, a fastball is still 1 finger in any language. 1-2. The pitch to the plate swung on and missed. Looked like Grandal was thinking about driving that to right field and came up empty. However, 2 base hits and a scoring fly ball, and at the end of 3, it's the Dodgers 3 and the Giants 2. Sportsnet LA is brought to you by the Dodge Challenger. Test drive one at your local Dodge dealer today. And by Jack in the Box. Taste the all-new Jack's Brewhouse Bacon Burger today at Jack in the Box. Limited time only at participating restaurants. October the 1st, 1951. Crowd coming into Ebbets Field. Brooklyn Dodgers take on the Giants in a playoff game. The focal point for baseball fans. When the camera clicked that picture, the Giants were at bat in the first inning. That, of course, was the series that led to the most dramatic home run by Bobby Thompson against Ralph Branca. Long time ago, 51. Meanwhile, here's Hunter Pence. Pence hit back to the box, 0 for 1. Strike. Hunter Pence really made his name as a Giant in September of 2013. Giants and Dodgers were playing a 4-game series, and he had 5 home runs, 12 RBIs, including 7 RBIs in 1 game. Hunter became the first Giant player since 1965 to homer in every game of a 4-game series against the Dodgers. Who did it in 65? Oh, sure, Willie Mays. 1 ball and 1 strike. Slider, check swing, no swing, says Carlos Torres. Meanwhile, Bumgarner and Posey, not much to talk about right now. Bumgarner giving up 3 runs and 6 hits. 2-1 to Hunter Pence. Big bouncer wide at third. Turner can't get it, but Seager can. One out in the 4th inning. Eduardo Nunez coming up.
Number 10, Eduardo Nunez.
Nunez having a good solid year for the Giants. 288, 13 home runs, etc. Shows bunt, takes a strike, and the count 0-1. In May earlier this year, Nunez was still playing with the Rays. Or he was playing against the Rays. He was with the Minnesota Twins, and he had an inside the park home run against Matt Moore, who is now his teammate. 0-1 at the count. There's Matt Moore talking to Samardzija. Difference in style, huh? 1 ball, 1 strike. 2-1. Maeda working on Eduardo Michael Nunez from the Dominican Republic. Nunez, 29 years old. And ball 3. Nunez originally drafted by the Yankees and actually came up in 2010. Played up and down in the Yankee organization before going to the Twins after a brief stop with Tampa Bay. 3-1. Fastball for ball 4. So the Dodgers led 2-0. Giants tied it. Dodgers are out in front 3-2, and the Giants trying to at least tie it again. You know, Thursday, Dodgers and Giants, be one of the first 40,000 fans in attendance, receive a Corey Seager bobblehead presented by your Southern California BMW centers. For tickets, visit Dodgers.com/promotions. 1 out walk brings up Joe Panik. Singled and scored for the 8th straight game. He has scored at least 1 run against the Dodgers. Off the plate, ball 1. Panic checking. Roberto Kelly perhaps hanging out a sign. Although the Giants have not put on a play, hit and run or run and hit. Not yet anyway. Throw to first. Nunez back on the bag. Joe Panic wears number 12. I mean, he loves the number 12. In fact, he wore number 12 when he was playing in the Little League. There's the 1-0 pitch on the way. Reason he liked number 12, well, he idolized Wade Boggs, a great hitter with the Red Sox. Joe's from Yonkers, New York, lives in Hopewell Junction. Picked another good player to be a fan of, Derek Jeter. 1 ball and no strikes. Keeping an eye on Nunez for sure. Nunez has stolen 4 bases. But in the American League, he was something. In the National League, he's stolen 4 out of 6. In the American League, he had stolen 27 out of 33. So they might be running him, but you have Bumgarner hitting 9th, but he's a good hitting pitcher. 1-1 the count. You don't usually gamble on the base paths with a pitcher coming up, but that's not the definition of Bumgarner. 1 ball and 1 strike. Nunez at first, 1 out. 1-1 the count on Panic. Ball 2. This is the first of 9. Can you imagine how many times we'll be climbing the walls between now and October the 2nd? First year manager Dave Roberts. Boy, has he been through a grueling period, and how well he has done. No surprise to anybody who knew him. Foul back, 2-2. Meanwhile, Alex Wood, Scott Kazmir, Jock Peterson. Pitchers talk to pitchers, outfielders listen. 2-2. And that's a foul ball. I'm sure one of the reasons Nunez, who has stolen a lot of bases in the American League, but he just doesn't know the delivery of the National League pitchers. They haven't played that much over here, and trying to read a pitcher's move for the first time is tough. And when you're down by a run, the last thing you want to do is be picked off. 2-2 the count to Joe Panic. 1 for 1, singled up the middle off Culberson's glove. Nunez poised, not going. Panic lays off ball 3. So with 1 out, full count, chances are very good that Nunez will be going, and Madison Bumgarner, who struck out in the 3rd inning, will be coming up. Nunez, cautious lead. Maeda looks over his shoulder at him. He goes, and it is ball 4. First and second, 1 out, 4th inning. Dodgers 3, Giants 2. The first pitch that Maeda makes here in the 4th inning will be his 70th pitch. So here's Bumgarner. Nunez and Panic both run well, especially Nunez. So 2 on, 1 out. Bumgarner struck out in the 3rd inning. Dodgers 3 runs, 6 hits. Giants 2 runs, 4 hits. Foul ball, 0-1. Couple of things about Bumgarner. Number one, as we mentioned, he wants to elevate the ball and hit a home run. And 99 times out of 100, with his swing, he's out in front. He tries to pull everything. Oh and 1. And there go the runners. Double steal. Grandal's throw to third is in time to get Nunez. So a surprise. There are all of those conservative moments where the Giant hitters had a 2-1 count, 3-1 count. Now they gamble on a double steal, and Nunez is out at third. Good throw by Grandal. And nice tag and a roll by Turner to get away and hold on to the ball. So the Giants waste a big opportunity. Now they have 2 out. The tying run is at second base. 1 ball and 1 strike to count. Boshi, who was a catcher in his day, probably figured Maeda and Grandal would still be struggling and not be ready for the double steal, but Grandal certainly was, and arrowed one to Turner. No stolen base for Panic, not when the lead runner is out. Two balls and 1 strike. Slow breaking ball drops in for a strike. Bumgarner looks up to the heavens for a moment. In retrospect, I'm sure he's thinking, how could I take that pitch? 2-2. Got him. Fastball outside corner. So Bumgarner, after looking at a slow curve, freezes on the fastball. The Giants run themselves out of the inning. And at the end of 3.5, 3-2 Dodgers. As we go to the bottom of the 4th inning, Rob Sevigan is certainly on a roll. Yesterday in Cincinnati, he crushed one for a home run, his first as a Dodger. And then tonight against Madison Bumgarner, a line drive home run over the left field wall. So Sevigan walking on a cloud right now, and he'll be leading off the bottom of the 4th. Maeda has made 74 pitches. Madison Bumgarner has made 55. Sevigan, Culberson, and Maeda. And ball one. Second, and I think commenting to Buster Posey on that first pitch. That drops in nicely. 1 ball and 1 strike. Bumgarner appears unhappy with himself or the gods or his stuff or just whatever. Unhappy with his hitting and very unhappy about allowing 3 runs, 6 hits. That's in nicely. 1 and 2. Bumgarner, a truly remarkable pitcher. Who will ever forget his World Series performance in a year that made over 4,000 pitches. Little foul ball. Remember when Bumgarner made 7 postseason appearances, amassed just about 53 innings, the most innings by any pitcher, passing Curt Schilling. His earned run average was 1. One ball and 2 strikes. Fastball. See you later. So second in called out on fastball. And the batter now will be Charlie Culberson. 5 strikeouts for Bumgarner. Bumgarner also with the 5 strikeouts, no walks. Charlie Culberson, born in Calhoun, Georgia. He was originally a first-round pick by the Giants. Actually played for the Giants in 6 games back in 2012. Time. A beach ball on the field in left field. Charlie Culberson, 27 years old, 6'1", 200-pounder. After going from the Giants, he then wound up with the Rockies and eventually called up from Oklahoma City by the Dodgers. Fastball strike, 0-1. Bumgarner on a strike 1 pitch. Slow breaking ball, but he missed. 1-1. In that World Series dramatic moment in the 9th inning, Gregor Blanco had trouble with the ball in left field. That allowed the tying run to get to third base. And Bumgarner very calmly raised his glove as if to say, okay, give me a new ball. And those who knew him well back in North Carolina watching the game on television, and their first thought was, he's okay. And he was. Getting Perez to pop up. 2-2. In fact, they were interviewing Bumgarner shortly after when he was back at home on the farm. And he was standing in the barn with some hay. And the interviewer saying, boy, tying run at third, crowd going crazy, 7th game of the World Series, bottom of the 9th. Bumgarner said, in all honesty, I was as calm then as I am now. Little ground ball to the left of Crawford. 2 down. So the point being, I guess, in watching him roll his eyes, mutter a little bit to himself, show that he's a little displeased with what's going on tonight. Nevertheless, you have a truly seasoned man out there in Madison Bumgarner. Kenta Maeda ready to hit. The plate umpire, Rob Drake, throws the last ball out. Maeda grounded to third in the 2nd inning. 2 out, 4th inning, 3-2 Dodgers. Fastball fouled away at 91. So if indeed the interpretation of the word Madison means the son of a great warrior, Madison Bumgarner has been accurately named. 0-1. Good, soft, slow breaking ball, slider, but just got up there at 74 miles an hour. Now let's see, will he try to blow him away with the fastball? Yep, that'll be that. So that would be 6 strikeouts for Madison Bumgarner. And at the end of 4, Dodgers 3, Giants 2. Is brought to you by your Southern California Toyota dealers. Toyota's annual clearance event is here. Save big on the entire 2016 Prius family. Hurry in today. April the 14th, 1955, opening day at the Polo Grounds in New York. Leo Durocher shaking hands with Walter Alston. The left-hander, Robert Wagner, the mayor of New York. And to his right would be Warren Giles, the president of the National League. And of course, 55 was the year that the Dodgers ran away with the pennant and brought to Brooklyn its first and only World Championship. And it began against the Giants. And remember, the Giants in 54 won the World Series. All right, 3-2, favor of the Dodgers. And here's Denard Span. Ball 1. Span has singled and walked, scored a run. That's a good changeup for a strike. 1-1. Span, one of the few fellas who has really held his own. While most of the Giants have been struggling, he's hit .326. Ball 2, 2-1. And a little fly ball down the left field line. It's going to be trouble if it's fair, and it's foul. So 2-2 the count. Let's see a close-up of Denard Span. Not so much of the bat, but of Denard himself. I'm looking at his neck, but I don't see it. For years, he had a ring that he wore around his neck. It belonged to his late grandfather. Meant a great deal to him, and he played with that for years. But I don't think he has it around his neck anymore. 2-2. poke foul down the line, out of play. His mom owns a child care center in Tampa. Anything that bothers him, he calls Mom. They usually pray together. His mom is a pastor. 2-2. Fastball pulled to Adrian, who feed high to Maeda coming over. 1 out in the 5th inning. Angel Pagan coming up.
Left fielder Angel Pagan.
Pagan flied to left, came up with a clutch base hit in the 3rd inning to drive in the tying run at the time. Dodgers led 2-0. Giants scored twice in the 3rd to tie. Dodgers came back to lead 3-2. Off speed for a strike. When Maeda pitches, knowing that he's not a big man, his strength is a variable from start to start. And one thing they know, as he gets through the lineup, he starts to lose a little something. In his first time through the lineup, the opposition is hitting 172. Second time through, 201. Third time through, 343. Well, this is really the 3rd time through. No swing. He's also made 83 pitches. Top of the 5th, 1 out. No one throwing in the Dodger bullpen, but our fellas are kind of getting up and moving around. Honeycutt counting pitches, watching his stuff. 2-1. Fastball flared down the left field line. Kendrick over to get it, and Pagan with a single is 2-4-3. That'll bring up Brandon Belt. Just hit inside out. No chance for Turner. So the tying run is Pagan, and Brandon Belt checking in. Pagan steals bases. He's stolen 13 out of 17. Belt has flied to left, struck out, and that's going to get away. Grandal has lost sight of it for a moment. Seager goes over to cover 3rd, and down to 2nd goes Pagan. That'll be a wild pitch. This is not exactly Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers looking at Grandal and Maeda. They are not close to finishing a dance tonight. Tying run at 2nd, 1 out. Honeycutt gritting his teeth a little bit. All right, 1 ball and no strikes. They haven't changed it, so if you look at your book, there have been 3 wild pitches, but one of them had to be a pass ball, or they ruled it a pass ball, and it should have been a wild pitch. And that was when Grandal was obviously crossed up. Pitch number 87 coming up for Maeda. 5th inning, 1 out. Runner at 2nd, the tying run. And Belt whacks it down the line. Fair ball, rattling around, and the ball is in play. The run scores on a double by Belt, and the Giants have tied it up 3-3. So Brandon Belt does just that. That's a great name for a power hitter, Belt. I remember years ago the Cubs had a catcher who was a pretty hard-hitting catcher named Carl Sawatsky. What a great name. Well, Belt will do. He just doubled in the run, and we have a 3-3 tie. Yep, Honeycutt's on the phone. Here's Posey, grounded out, singled, drive in a run. And a strike. So the Dodgers led 2-0. Giants tied it up. Dodgers led 3-2. Giants have tied it up. Posey singled home span back in the third inning to tie up the game. Jesse Chavez is now up in the Dodger bullpen. That's foul back. So Chavez starting to heat up. So as figured, going according to plan, really. Maeda, third time through the lineup, is struggling. Single, double, gives up the tying run. And the pitch count now, he's coming up ready to throw his 90th pitch. Oh, 2. I don't know how Posey even hit that ball. It was way off the plate. Somehow he got the bat on it, and it's still 0-2. Maeda, his last time out, went 6 innings and made 95 pitches. Well, he's made 90, and he is in the 5th inning. Oh, 2. In the dirt. Nice save by Grandal. 1 ball and 2 strikes the count. Roberto Kelly has long since left the third base coaching box. He's almost halfway to home plate. That gives him a very nice angle to keep an eye on Belt. Also takes a lot of faith to do that. Strong right-hand batter at the plate, and you're turning your back on him. One and 2. Check swing, pitch low, 2-2. On deck, Brandon Crawford. Three runs, 6 hits, and no errors for each side. Roberts shaking his head a little bit, listening to Coach Bob Guerin. 2 balls, 2 strikes. Little ground ball to third, backhanded by Turner. Throws him out. Belt has to hold. 2 down, and Brandon Crawford coming up.
Shortstop Brandon Crawford.
Crawford hit back to the box, hit into a force play, 0 for 2. Chavez looks like he's about ready, if need be, down in the bullpen. Maeda trying to tough it out now. And Crawford hitting .273. Brandon Belt at second, 2 out, 3-3 in the 5th. In the dirt, nice block by Grandal. 1 ball and no strikes. And that's low, ball 2. On deck, the right hand hitting Hunter Pence. check swing. They're going to look. No swing. So Maeda being very careful with the left-hand batter Crawford, who has 11 home runs and 74 runs batted in, and a runner in scoring position, the go-ahead run. So they decided, never mind, let's put him on. So Maeda has now walked 4. Again, Honeycutt getting on the phone to see where Chavez is warming up. And here is Hunter Pence. Pence hit back to the box, grounded to short, 0 for 2. Pence, with runners in scoring position of late, has done very well, hitting .316. 2 on, 2 out, 3-3. One and one. Hunter is 6'4", 215. In the dirt to the backstop. The runners move up again. Well, that for sure a wild pitch for Maeda. 2 wild pitches in the inning. That was just a bad pitch and went to the backstop. Maeda, coming into the game, had 4 wild pitches, and he has certainly added to that pile. So Pence now, second and third, 2 out. 2 balls and 1 strike. Pitch number 102. And pop foul, no play. Still 2-2. That's a lot of pitches, and you're only in the 5th inning. Maeda's most, 107 twice. Here comes number 103. Got him. Fastball up, and Pence comes up empty-handed. So the Giants get 1, but lose another scoring opportunity. And Maeda fights his way to the dugout in relief, and we have a 3-3 tie. All wrapped up in a 3-3 tie. Giants getting so close to taking the lead for the first time tonight, but they came up short. That's ball one to Kike Hernandez. For Maeda, he made 29 pitches in that fifth inning, and that means 103. So you wonder, will they let him go back out there? 1-1. Bumgarner taking a lot off. It looks up here like Kike keeps looking for a fastball. He's getting a lot of off-speed pitches, and then the last time up, he got the fastball with 2 strikes and couldn't swing. 1-1. Fastball. He got it, and he went after it. So Kike, leadoff single in the fifth inning. Say, do you know a standout high school senior athlete? Then nominate him for a chance to be named a Time Warner Cable Sports Championship Drive Scholar Athlete and receive a $2,500 college scholarship. So go to twcschamp.com now for more information. Kike gets the fastball, singles to center. Howie Kendrick, 1 ball and no strikes, checking with Chris Woodruff. Dodgers moving around in the bullpen. They had Jesse Chavez up, and he's up again. Bumgarner has allowed 3 runs and 7 hits. The difference against Maeda, no walks, no wild pitches. 1-1. Game 1 of the 3-game series. Tomorrow night, Johnny Cueto and Rich Hill. Thursday's game, Matt Moore, the left-hander, recently acquired by the Giants. Dodgers are not quite sure about Thursday. 1 ball and 1 strike. Off speed for a strike. 73-mile-an-hour changeup. 1-2 to Howie. Grounded to second, grounded to short. Fastball off the glove of Bumgarner. Goes to second just in time. Boy, a big play by Madison Bumgarner. It happened so quickly, I'm not sure whether Posey could have told him to go to second. The Dodgers were on the phone to see if they want to review the play or not. Off his glove. Posey isn't near him, so I doubt that Posey would have asked him to throw to second, because that was a big gamble. Dodgers have decided not to review it, though a very big play by Madison Bumgarner. Kendrick losing a base hit, and we have 1 out. Here's Seager, doubled and singled. Foul ball off to the left out of play. 0-1. Seager's double went to right center, up against the wall. His single went to left field. You might be wondering, we mentioned earlier how tough Madison Bumgarner has been against left-hand batters. And you wonder, well, Seager has 2 hits tonight. Has a left-handed batter ever had 3 hits against Madison Bumgarner? And the answer is twice. Foul back, 0-2. Charlie Blackmon, back in 2014, center fielder for Colorado, and in 2015, Texas Rougned Odor. 0-2. 1-2. Seager checking with Woodward, coaching at third. Kendrick held on by Belt. 3-3, bottom of the fifth. That almost went behind him. Took a while to get up there. Bumgarner throwing a lot of 73s and 74s. Another slow breaking ball. 2-2. We're in the fifth. 3-3 tie. Justin Turner on deck. 3-2 fastball. It almost got away. Seager coming into the game had been 0 for 3 against Bumgarner, though he's 2 for 2 tonight. And 3-2 count. Runner going, foul ball. So Kendrick, as the Dodgers play run and hit, come back, try it again. Earlier, big offensive play by the Giants went up in smoke. They tried the double steal with Nunez and Panic, and Nunez was caught out at third. 3-2 to Seager. We'll watch Kendrick again. He's gone and fouled away. So it's an 8-pitch at bat. Corey's had 5 fouls. And here comes pitch number 9 on a 3-2 count. So we'll see if they run him a third time. Kendrick goes. And the pitch is ball 4. Sometimes psychologically, when you see a runner on a couple of 3-2 pitches running, the third time you get the pitcher thinking, I want to get that ball up to home plate as fast as I can. And in his haste to get it to home plate, they overthrow. And that's what Bumgarner did. Look at him muttering to himself. And I know why. 2 on, 1 out. And Justin Turner, the hitter, and Dave Righetti on the phone. So Hernandez single, erased by Kendrick's ground ball. That was hit back hard to Bumgarner. Giants answer the phone. In a moment, we'll see who loosens up. Turner fouls it away. 0-1. Turner has 2 hits, single to left, single to right. Well, Madison obviously struggling. Corey Guerin is loosening up in the bullpen. That's going to go down the right field line, slicing foul, and goes back into the stands. 0-2. Here's Corey getting ready. So Bumgarner's been struggling. In the first inning, he gave up, with 2 out, he gave up a double and 2 singles. Bruce Bochy, a remarkable manager. Foul back. Talking about Bochy down there in the dugout, there have been 10 managers have won at least 3 World Series. Bochy and 9 Hall of Famers. Stengel and McCarthy with 7, Connie Mack with 5, Joe Torre and Walter Alston 4, Bochy, La Russa, Anderson, McGraw, and Higgins 3. 0-2. Little roller up along third, could be trouble. No play by Nunez, and the bases are loaded with 1 out. I'm not quite sure. Nunez seemed to hesitate a moment. Watch him. See him slow start. Now he's going to slow down again and try to barehand the ball, and by that time it's way too late. And if he gotten a good jump on the ball, he probably would have had a play. Since he didn't, and Bumgarner's furious, that's going to be ruled a base hit. And Madison is very unhappy. And you can understand his third baseman is the last man to get to the mound, but he's behind the pitcher and out of the firing line. So Bumgarner is ticked off. Turner gets his 3rd hit. Bases loaded for Adrian Gonzalez. So Howie Kendrick is at 3rd, Corey Seager at 2nd, Justin Turner at 1st, 1 out. And here's the butter and egg man for the Dodgers, Adrian Gonzalez, singled and a sacrifice fly. Infield back and double play depth. Ball 1. Boy, with the 3rd baseman Nunez way over near the hole at short, Howie Kendrick came running down the line, but he's not going to go anywhere, especially with a left-hand hitter at the plate. The left-hand hitter, Adrian Gonzalez, has 5 grand slams. He hit one July the 24th in St. Louis this year. 1 ball and no strike. Off the plate again. So in the inning, Kendrick hit into a 4th play, but then Seager fouled them off and walked. Turner a little roller to 3rd for a base hit. Two and 0. And that's going to be hit just over Crawford's glove. 1 run scores. Here comes the 2nd run. The play at the plate is too late. Turner's in there, and the Dodgers take a 5-3 lead. Just over the glove of Brandon Crawford. 2-run score. The play is at 2nd, but holding on there is Turner. Crawford just missed it, and Adrian picks up 2 ribbies, and the Dodgers lead 5-3. Bumgarner is due to bat 3rd, and in watching him up close, muttering to himself, he is really one unhappy left-hander. Not to mention Bruce Bochy. Little foul off to the right out of play. Randolph grounded to short and struck out. So after all of his hard work, Kenta Maeda, who is still the pitcher of record, might wind up with a win. Despite a couple of wild pitches and one that should have been a wild pitch that was called a pass ball. 0-1. Eduardo Nunez had trouble on that little ground ball to third, and that really set the stage. Fastball, check swing, foul. 0-2. Still one out. Dodgers led 2-0. Giants tied it. Dodgers led 3-2. Giants tied it. Dodgers lead 5-3, and Maeda, with all of his problems, could wind up the winning pitcher. Foul back. Bumgarner now has made 94 pitches. Trying to win his 13th. Came in with a great earned run average of 2.2. Oh, 2. Slow breaking ball. Grandal goes down for the second time. That for Bumgarner is his 7th strikeout. You would think 7 strikeouts and 1 walk, that he'd certainly be in the game. But he's struggling, trailing 5-3, and here's Rob Seguin, who homered and struck out. Two on, 2 out, 2 in. High fly ball, but playable. Pence is there. And that'll be that. So the Dodgers come up with 2 hits, a 4th play, a split single, and then another base hit to center, put it all together. And the payoff, the 2-run single by Adrian Gonzalez. And it's 5-3 Dodgers. In 1958, the Dodgers played Milwaukee in the Coliseum. Dodgers won that game easily 10-1, and it was highlighted by Gil Hodges' grand slam home run. It was the 14th of his career. You think that's a lot, but then you realize Alex Rodriguez had 25, Lou Gehrig had 23, Manny Ramirez had 21. Let's go back to this one. 6th inning, 5-3, favor of the Dodgers. Eduardo Nunez starting it off. Nunez has fly to center, walked, and was out at third trying to lead a double steal. Jesse Chavez now trying to hold on to this one and give Maeda his 13th win. foul back. Naturally, these games always a 2-game meaning. Dodgers win, they trail by 2. Giants win, they're tied. Oh, and 2. Shot off the leg of Chavez. Turner picks it up, but he has no play. So literally and figuratively, a base hit off Jesse Chavez, and he got that pretty hard off the leg. Take another look. Right there, maybe the buttocks. Dave Roberts going out to make sure he's okay. So Nunez, a base hit. Joe Panik will be coming up. And for the Dodgers, every time there's a comebacker, you wonder. Remember, they already today put Brett Anderson and Scott Kazmir. Adrian Gonzalez is grinning. I think he took that one on the back of his right leg. Adrian still talking. Chavez kind of turns his back for the moment. Okay. Starting pitchers for the Dodgers. It's a rather interesting number. Madison Bumgarner, 5 innings. Been in trouble all the time. Kenta Maeda wobbled for 5. Got out of there with a possibility of winning, but let's see if Bumgarner's going to stay in the game. So Nunez at first, Panik the batter, and Madison is not putting a helmet on, so he's done. Interesting thing in watching Bumgarner, it appeared upstairs that he threw a lot of off-speed pitches, not nearly a fastball pitcher that he can be. And maybe you'd find this interesting. In the 5th inning, there was 1 swing and a miss compared to 12 foul balls. And with Bumgarner, he doesn't usually have just 1 swing and a miss. So Panik is the hitter, and they'll go to the bench for a pinch hitter. 2-0 the count. Connor Gillespie, left-hand batter, out on deck. So for Madison Bumgarner, one of those nights. That's a strike. 2-1. Chavez takes a shot off the leg, hanging in there. Johnny Cueto tomorrow. There goes the runner. The pitch is outside. The throw down is no good. So Nunez, who was thrown out trying to steal third as part of a double steal, steals second base. Seager a little late. Tag on the elbow, hand on the bag. And somehow he was able to hold on, barely. Bumgarner, by the way, made 29 pitches in that 5th inning and 96 in the game. Three and 1. And a strike. Adam Lieberthor off the DL. Adam now gets up in the Dodger bullpen. We're in the 6th inning. 3 for the Giants and 5 for the Dodgers. But they've been playing seesaw with the lead. Fastball, little roller, fair ball. 1 out. Nunez takes third. So Connor Gillespie will be coming up in a moment to bat for Bumgarner. So Gillespie is now being called back.
Number 21, Connor Gillespie.
And They're going to go to the bench, and it will be Ere. Yeah, Adrianza has not been playing that much of late. Enrique Adrianza. You know, they announced Connor Gillespie as the pinch hitter. I'm not sure if that's official or not as to whether they burned him as a pinch hitter. Obviously, they waved it off, so he will not have been the announced pinch hitter. He's available to play later on during the game. And Adrianza now batting for Bumgarner. A little pop fly into right field. Fair ball. The run scores, and they're back at it again. Dodgers 5, Giants 4. So Adrianza, little fly ball single to right. And Dave Roberts now with a left-hand hitter, Denard Span, coming up, has Liberatore in the pen. So Boshi had Connor Gillespie out there, then switched to Adrianza, and Adrianza gets the base hit. So for Chavez, he faced 3 men, gave up 2 hits and a stolen base for a run. Tying run is his responsibility. Liberatore coming in, and we'll be back.
Your attention, please. Now pitching.
Dodger Baseball on Sportsnet LA is brought to you by Nissan. Choose Nissan today for great offers on our most exciting lineup ever. Shop online at choosenissan.com. And by Children's Hospital Los Angeles. We treat kids better. In some ways, they're playing tonight like they have played against the league and battling each other from afar. At one time, Giants led by 8 games over the Dodgers. Dodgers took the field tonight, leading the Giants by 1. And the Dodgers led 2-0. Giants tied at 2-2. Dodgers led 3-2. Giants got a run to tie it up 3-3. Dodgers got 2 to lead 5-3. And the Giants have come back with 1 to make it 5-4. Tying run, Adrianza at first base, and Denard Span 1 for 2 with a walk at the plate. Strike. Span singled to right against Maeda, walked against Maeda, and grounded out against Maeda. Now looking at the left-hander, Liberatore. Adrianza runs well. He stole as many as 30 some odd bases in the minor leagues. 0-1. Remember Ozzie Guillen? Most recently managed the Chicago White Sox. Adrianza over there at first is the godson of Ozzie Guillen. Just turned 27. 1-1. Span hitting in the 270s. 1 for 2 tonight. Scored a run after he walked. One and two the count to Denard Span. Angel Pagan on deck. (5-4) Dodgers in a game that is far from settled. Span coming into the game was 13 for 28. Now he is 14 for 30. 1-2. They're worrying about Adrianza, and well, they might. Five to 4 favor of the Dodgers. Only in the 6th inning. Fastball hit to short. Seager to Culberson to Gonzalez. Denard Span hits into the double play. Giants have to stick with one. And at the end of 5.5 innings, Dodgers 5, Giants 4. The cover, we have just begun. It's game 1 of 3 and game 1 of 9, going right down to the last game of the season. You have tomorrow and Thursday here at Dodger Stadium. Then on the 19th of September, 3 more with the Giants, and then the final 3 on the weekend that ends Sunday, October 2. And from the looks of things, it might very well go right down to the wire. Corey Guerin, a right-hander out of Chattanooga, Tennessee. 30 years old, 6'3", 205-pounder. He was originally drafted by the Braves out of Mercer University and came up to the Braves in 11, 12, 13. He had Tommy John surgery in 2014 and then was picked up by the Giants. So Corey ready to work. Rob Segedin, Chase Utley is now at the plate, and he'll be followed by Andrew Toles. So Utley hitting for Segedin, and Toles will stay in and finish up in right field. Chase hitting .260, 11 home runs. Imagine that grand slam he hit in Philadelphia, foul back. In fact, when he was introduced in Philadelphia before his first at bat, the applause lasted 81 seconds. In fact, the applause for Utley each time he did anything at all, including running when he was warming up before the game, he got an ovation. Pence is going to have to play it on a bounce. So Utley, a fly ball single against Corey Guerin, and Charlie Culberson will give way now to Andrew Toles.
Pitcher number 60, Andrew Toles.
Andrew Toll, who hit his first home run in that runaway game in Cincinnati. Hitting very well in the minors, called him back up, hitting .326. Very good running speed. Nunez in on the grass looking bunt. Ball one. Dodgers 5 runs, 10 hits. So all 5 runs and 9 hits against Madison Bumgarner. 1 ball and no strikes. There goes, and then bluff. Utley either stumbled and couldn't go, or that was a tremendous fake. Brandon Crawford was racing to second base as if his life depended on it. I have a feeling Utley kind of stumbled. Looks that way. And a drive into right center. That's going to go to the wall. Utley is coming to third. They're going to wave him in. The relay from Crawford is not in time on a long double by Cole, and the Dodgers lead 6-4. So Andrew Toll, who's been playing great ball when he was sent back to the minors, comes up and shows that he can do it here. In fact, he's been very impressive whenever he has played for the Dodgers. And of course, we would be remiss if we didn't mention the fact that Andrew Toll was brought up and Yasiel Puig stayed in Oklahoma City. That's certainly part of the Toll story. So here's Kike Hernandez, struck out twice and singled. Bullpens are busy. Joe Blanton in the Dodger bullpen. Will Smith, left-hander, in the Giant pen. Tolles at second. And the Dodgers leading 6-4, so Blanton getting ready. Six runs, 11 hits for the Dodgers. 4 runs, 8 hits for the Giants. PK shows bunt, fouls it back. Oh, and 1. So in the inning, Utley came up and singled to right. Tolles then hit and doubled. Blanton getting ready to pick up for Liberatore. Tolles trying to get a jump at second base. Nobody out. Late swing, ground ball, backhanded, no, missed by Crawford. Here comes Toles, and he will score. So Kike gets a hit, and the Dodgers now lead 7-4. It looked like Crawford from up here was going to backhand that ball out on the grass and couldn't do it. So the run scores. Take another look, see how it is on the tape. Here's Crawford coming over, and up here we just lost it. So it's a base hit. Dodgers now lead by 3, and here's Howie Kendall. Dodgers scored 5 against Madison Bumgarner, and have scored twice against Cody Guerin. Andrew Toles doubles in Utley, scores on the base hit by Hernandez. Giants have been asked to come back several times, and now they really have a task when they come up in the 7th inning. Fouled away. Madison Bumgarner, 5 innings, 5 runs, 9 hits, struck out 7. Now Cody Guerin picking up for him. Fastball runner going fouled at the plate. So Kike will have to go back. Kike is still standing at second base. Thought that was a foul ball. It got away from Buster Posey, and obviously not. Take a look. Yeah, it didn't get away. He was coming up to throw, and then it got away. So it'll be a stolen base for Kike Hernandez. Strike 2 pitch, waved at and missed. So Kendrick strikeout. Will Smith in the Giant bullpen, and with Corey Seager coming up, I think Bruce will take out Guerin and bring in the left-hander, but we'll have to wait and see. Dodgers have back-to-back innings where they scored 2, so what was a tough 5-4, now the Dodgers lead 7-4, and we'll be back. Leading the Giants 7-4. The left-hander Will Smith coming to the Giants from the Brewers. They sent catcher Andrew Susac back to Milwaukee. So William Michael Smith out of Noonan, Georgia, originally a 7th-round pick by the Angels back in 2008, came up to the big leagues with the Royals, then the Brewers, and now the Giants. He's a big man, 6'5", 240, 27 years old. Corey Seager faced Bumgarner a couple of times. Well, now look at another left-hander, Will Smith. (7-4) Dodgers, 2-1 out, and a runner at second base, Hernandez. Breaking ball for ball one. Corey doubled against Bumgarner and scored a run in the first inning. He now has a 14-game hitting streak. Fastball misses, 2-0. Oh, Canada. I understand being carried on Sportsnet up there. Two balls and no strikes. And a high fly ball, that's all it is. Pence is there. Hernandez tagging, he's not going anywhere. So fly ball to right field, 2 down, and Justin Turner coming up.
Third baseman, number 10.
So the Dodgers have scored in almost every inning. 1 in the first, 1 in the second, 1 in the third. Nothing in the fourth, 2 in the fifth, and 2 in the sixth. Turner singled to left, to right, and then that slow roller that seemed to confuse Nunez a little bit. Eduardo unable to handle it. Foul back. By the way, in saying hello to Canada, specifically to the city of Toronto, the Blue Jays beat the Angels 7-2 tonight. So the Blue Jays are tied for first place with the Red Sox. Oh, and 1. One ball and 1 strike. Seven runs, 12 hits for the Dodgers, 4 runs, 8 hits for the Giants. We're in the 6th. Bumgarner, Guerin, and now Smith. Little foul. 1 and 2. Turner with a big 3-hit night. Waiting on deck, Adrian Gonzalez, who's having a big night. Adrian singled in the first inning, had a sacrifice fly in the third, and singled with the bases loaded to drive in 2. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Check swing. It's going to charge him a swing, a strike, and the inning is over. But the Dodgers come up with 2 more, 3 hits. Utley off the bench single, Toles off the bench double, Hernandez single, and the Dodgers lead 7-4 as we head to the 7th. Dodgers-Cubs game, watch your favorite Hollywood celebrities show off their softball skills in the annual Hollywood Stars game presented by New Balance. For tickets, visit Dodgers.com/HollywoodStars. For the Dodgers, they move him around a little bit. Chase Utley takes over at second base. Charlie Culberson comes out. Andrew Toles comes in and gets himself a key double and takes over in center field. So the Dodger outfield is Kendrick Toles in second, and Utley's at second, and Joe Blanton becomes the fourth Dodger pitcher. Strike. Angel Pagan leading off the seventh. Angel fly to left, single to center, and single to left. 2 for 3, scored 1, knocked in 1. That's off the plate. 1 ball and 1 strike. One and one. Seems hard to believe Madison Bumgarner went out of the game losing 5-3, so he can't win. And what's amazing is he has not picked up a victory against the Dodgers since May 21st of last year. This was his 5th start, and a pitcher of the stature of Madison Bumgarner, it's amazing that he has failed to come up with a victory against the Dodgers. 1-2, foul ball. So Pagan up there trying to get something started with Belt, Posey, and Crawford lined up behind him. One ball and 2 strikes. Fastball in a great spot. Pagan just did get his bat down there and get a little piece of it. Somehow good hitters will stay alive and get a foul ball on a pitch that would absolutely tie up many others. 1-2. Got a ball up, and he promptly hits it to right. Nice play by Seguin. That ball started to take off. So Pagan hits it hard, but lines out to right. 1 down, and Brandon Belt coming up. Brandon Belt flied to left, struck out, doubled to drive in a run in the 5th inning. This is the 11th meeting of the year between the two teams. Giants have won 6 of 10. Of the 4 Dodger victories, 3 of them belong to Kershaw. So the other Dodger starters were 1 and 6 against the Giants. The 1 belonged to Maeda. And Maeda, pitcher of record tonight, could still steal one. Dodgers trying to jump in front by 2 over the Giants. Well, down goes Belt. He strikes out a second time. For Brandon, he's struggling making contact.
Number 28, Buster Posey.
He has struck out now 116 times. He is top man on the Giants squad, or is it low man? Either way, 2 out, and here's Buster Posey. Grounded to third, single to center, grounded to third. His base hit in the 3rd inning drove in a run. Strike. Bumgarner, Guerin, and Smith, and the Dodgers, Maeda, Chavez, Liberatore, and Blanton. And remember, the Dodgers put 2 more starting pitchers on the DL. Brett Anderson, Scott Kazmir. 1-1. Buster's had a bad back, but he's hanging tough. One and two. Since the All-Star break, come to think of it, Buster Posey's had 1 home run. Gives him 12. Chased a fastball, and down he goes. So Blandon strikes out 2 of the 3. Posey is 1 for 4, and we go to the bottom of the 7th, 7-4, Dodgers. Bottom of the 7th inning, 7-4 in favor of the Dodgers. As you can see, the Dodgers scoring first. Each time the Giants kept coming back, and then the Dodgers got a big 2 in the 6th to loosen up a tight 5-4 game to 7-4. Adrian Gonzalez has 2 singles, a scoring fly ball, and 3 RBIs for the night. 0-1. Adrian, since the All-Star break, 8 home runs, 28 runs batted in. Fastball, nicely put, 0-2. Seven runs, 12 hits for the Dodgers. That's going foul. 4 runs, 8 hits for the Giants. Bumgarner, Guerin, and Will Smith. Maeda, Chavez, Liberatore, and Blanton. George Cantos warming up in the Giants bullpen. Ball one. One of the things the Giants have come to regret, their reliable bullpen committee has grown old. Afelt, Lopez, Romo, Casilla. Afelt retired. Romo's been hurt. Casilla and Lopez just aren't the same. In fact, Casilla has blown 6 saves. Adrian Fool, down he goes, 1 away. Casilla, by the way, has blown 6 saves. Kenley Jansen has blown 5. The interesting difference for Jansen, all 5 of his blown saves have come on the road. Dodger bullpen has 16 losses. The Giant bullpen has 17 losses. Slow and a little high. Ball one. Two and oh. One out, bases empty. 2 balls, no strikes. And a high fastball, ball 3. Just to conclude the thought about the bullpens, the Giant bullpens have blown 21 saves and the Dodgers 18. 3-1. Fastball sound like a cracked bat. Nunez will throw him out. So Grandal taps to third, and with 2 down, they'll get rid of the bat. And also, here comes Bruce Bochy. You know, in talking about the 2 bullpens, and it's so important because Bumgarner and Cueto have been able to go deep into games. The Giant bullpen has thrown approximately 1,500 fewer pitches than the Dodger pen. Here comes George Contos. We'll be back. LA is brought to you by BMW. See a Southern California BMW Center today for exceptional offers. And by Carl's Jr., introducing the Bacon 3-Way Burger only at Carl's Jr. 7-4 favor the Dodgers. George Contos coming in. So it's been Bumgarner, Guerin, Smith, and now George. Contos, good ERA, 2.4. Squirted on the ground. A lot of English on that one. Panic makes it very carefully. Boy, that ball left the bat. So nice play by Panic. Looked easy. It wasn't. And at the end at 7-4 Dodgers. Series, game 2 of the 9 games left between now and the end of the year. Johnny Cueto, 14-3, a good ERA under 3. And Rich Hill, bothered by blisters, he was 9-3 with Oakland and had a great ERA over in the American League. They're on the mound tomorrow night. Dodgers move people around. Josh Reddick is now in right field. Rob Seguin, well, Howie Kendrick is now at second base. They're bringing him an infielder's glove instead of that peach basket you wear when you're in the outfield. So Howie replacing Utley. And here's Brandon Crawford. Hit back to the box, hit into a force play, and was walked intentionally in the 5th inning. That was a big moment. Giants had first and third trailing by 1, and Hunter Pence struck out. Meanwhile, Johnny Cueto, hat sitting high up atop the hair, going after his 15th win. Talking about going after wins, Kenta Maeda has a shot at his 13th victory tonight. That would put him just one back for a young Dodger and his most victories in a first season. Ryu and Ishii each won 14. Nomo, his first year, won 13, and Maeda could win his 13th tonight. 2-1. 2-2. Down in the Dodger bullpen, the left-hander Luis Avilan, and you know the right-hander. 2-2. Little ground ball. Kendrick gets his first play at second base. And we have one out in the 8th inning. It's
Fielder
been
number 8,
Maeda,
Hunter Pence.
Chavez, Liebertor, and Blanton. And here's Hunter Pence. Pence, who normally gives the Dodgers a bad time. 0 for 3 tonight. Hit back to the box, grounded to short, and struck out. Had that big at bat when he struck out in the 5th inning. And ball 1. Nunez on deck. 7-4 Dodgers. They have 7 runs, 12 hits. Giants 4 runs, 8 hits. Fly ball to right center, and it will be the right fielder Reddick. But Josh makes the catch. 2 down. Blanton doing a very nice job. Has retired 5 in a row.
Third baseman number 10, Eduardo Nunez.
Eduardo Nunez. Fly to center, walk, was out trying to be the front man of a double steal. That was a big play back in the 4th inning. And then singled in the 6th, stole a base, and came in to score a run. So Nunez with 2 down and the bases empty. Blanton has retired 5 in a row. After Liebertor got spanned to hit into a double play to win the 6th inning. And now let's see another maneuver. Jock Peterson is coming off the bench. Andrew Toles will be coming out unless they're going to make more changes. They're going to go to the bullpen as well. And it's Kenley Jansen. So the Dodgers moving the pieces on the board. Seguin is coming out. And we'll be back. Andrew Toles in left. Jock Peterson is in center. Josh Reddick is in right. Originally, it was Kendrick, Hernandez, and Seguin. All right, Kenley Jansen is asked for 4 outs. Nunez 1 for 2 at the plate. 2 down, bases empty. High fly ball, very playable. Andrew Toles. All right, so Jansen comes in 1 pitch and gets the 3rd out. And we're heading for the bottom of the 8th, 7-4 Dodgers. Dodger Baseball live with the MLB.com at-bat app, the #1 app for live baseball on your phone and your tablet. Well, on your phone, on your tablet, on your TV, it's the Giants and the Dodgers. Josh Reddick will start it off. It'll be Reddick, then Toles, and Hernandez. Actually, Hernandez went out. Jock Peterson. So here is Reddick. He has a bad finger, hurt on the road. The story I read was he was opening the door for room service and somehow got his finger caught in the door. 1 ball and no strikes. Two and 0. For Reddick, tough going to a new club, new league. He was hitting .296 in the American League, hitting .149 in the National League. Pops it up, foul ground. Nunez coming over. Will the ball come back? No. 2-1 the count to Josh. George Contos, the 4th Giant pitcher. 2-1. 2-2. Cozy shaken up on that foul ball. Might have gotten him under the chin. Yeah, right there. Trials and tribulations of a catcher. Waiting till Buster feels a little better. By the way, George Contos is the answer to a trivia question. You remember back in 2013, Clayton Kershaw hit a home run to dead center field to break up a scoreless tie in the 8th, and the Dodgers won the game 1-0. Well, it was George Contos who gave up that home run. George had Tommy John surgery in 2009 and was originally selected by the Yankees. He's 31. In the dirt. When Contos was a toddler, he was under the care of his Greek-born grandparents. Mom and Dad both worked. And for 7 years, he attended Greek school. And as he said, I spoke Greek before I could speak English. George Contos. In the dirt. So Reddick draws the walk, and that'll bring up Andrew Toles, who is just a busybody. He's always doing something that pleases the Dodgers, making a catch, stealing a base, coming up with a hit, and he did it again tonight. He came up to bat in the 6th inning in a tough ball game. Utley had singled, and don't you know, Andrew hit one to the gap in right center. Utley scored. Toles had a double. So Contos is coming out. Toles will be coming in. Left-hander Javi Lopez will pick up, and we'll be back. Baltimore. Earned run average almost 4. He's still tough, and Andrew Toles will check in. Reddick at first, nobody out. Bottom of the 8th inning. Dodgers leading 7-4. The paid attendance tonight, 46,899. 46,899. And a drive to right, going back his pinch. It's over his head, over the wall. Home run for Toles, and the Dodgers lead 9-4. He will be mobbed in the Dodger dugout. He had his first home run in Cincinnati yesterday. Now he's making it a habit. Dodgers very happy for him. You can see all the smiles in the dugout. He did well. Then they sent him down. He did even better. They bring him back up. And he had a home run yesterday and a double and a home run tonight. A nightmare game for Bruce Bochy. 9-4 in favor of the Dodgers. Certainly with Madison Bumgarner going, you did not expect a runaway Dodger game. And look at the socks of Jock Peterson. Basically the Dodger socks, and it's been so long since I've seen them, they all wear their pants down to their ankles. Used to be plain blue. Big sidearm curveball, 1-1. Hey, whatever gets you through the game. 1 ball and 1 strike. A little roller, fair ball, pick up, nice play by Javi Lopez. 1 out. Here's Howie Kendrick. Kendrick started in left field, finishing up at second base. Kendrick grounded to second, grounded to short, hit into a force play, struck out, scored a run. Nine runs, 13 hits for the Dodgers. 4 runs, 8 hits for the Giants. Dodgers are 3 outs away from opening the lead on the Giants to 2 games. Cueto and Hill tomorrow night. Duano snakes that in on the corner. Well, you wonder about Rich Hill. I'm sure he does. Will the blisters return? He was 9-3 at Oakland. Dodgers can't wait to see him pitch. 2-2. Javi Lopez picking up as we see Johnny Cueto, tomorrow's starter. Javi was signed by the Diamondbacks back in 1998 out of the University of Virginia. 39 years old in July. 4th round pick by the Diamondbacks. Took him about 4.5 years to get to the big leagues with the Red Sox, the Rockies, the Pirates, and the Giants. So that'll do it for Howie. And the batter now, Corey Seager. Seager doubled in the first inning with 2 outs, scored on a single by Turner. Then Corey singled in the third inning, came home on a fly ball by Gonzalez. Then he walked in the fifth inning and scored again on a single by Gonzalez. So Corey's had a big night, 2 for 3, scoring 3 times. And of course, extending his hitting streak to 14. When he doubled against Bumgarner, as we pointed out at the time, that's a rare extra base hit by a left-hand batter given up by Madison Bumgarner. Bumgarner was charged with 5. Looks like his record will be 12 and 8. Line drive. Corey's at it again. 4 hits yesterday, 3 hits and a walk tonight. And no matter how they pitch him, he not only makes contact, he hits the ball hard. So he doubled to right center, single to left, flied to right, singles to left. Justin Turner, 3 singles and struck out, knocked in a run. His base hit on a very slow breaking ball from Madison Bumgarner, and Turner whacked it into left. So for Kenley Jansen, waiting to get at them in the 9th inning. He was asked to have a 4-out workout, and he was fortunate because Nunez swung at the first pitch and flied to left. So that is a 4th out, but it's about as easy as you can get it. He'll be facing Panic, the pitcher spot, and Span. Meanwhile, 2-0 to Justin Turner. So the Giants figure to lose 3 in a row and 7 of the last 9. They had a bad homestand. They lost 7 of 10 on the stand. Ground foul. 2-1. For the Giants, what a sinking feeling. On the 27th of June, they led the Dodgers by 8 games. And they won 19 and 28 after that. The Dodgers went the other way and won 28 and 19. So the difference of a -9 for the Giants, a +9 for the Dodgers, and the Dodgers took over first place by 1 game. And whether it's Pence or Samardzija or Bumgarner at all, they are all now going to be behind by 2 games. Lopez sneaking him in there, but he walks Turner, and that'll bring up Adrian.
First baseman number 23, Adrian Gonzalez.
Adrian 2 for 3 tonight. He's hit safely now in 16 straight. Big night with 3 runs batted in. 2 singles, a sac fly, and struck out. And it's a strike on 1. Oh, 2. Giants will have Joe Panic leading off in the 9th. In on the hands, 1 and 2. Check swing. You could go back to Javier Lopez when he was a little boy, and the few wobbly feet he traveled on a bicycle. His mom sent him in the only acceptable direction for any child, forward. And once the training wheels were removed, he was on his own. And in many ways, he completed the transition, and his mom, Sarah, was not about to put the wheels back on the bike. That was the beginning of his training, and there it was in the 80s. No helmets, no knee pads, no nothing. It was just to get on the bike and push and kip. He kept falling over, wanted to quit, pick another day, and she wouldn't let him. Nope, get back on the bike. And for a youngster, tremendous training for a man who would eventually graduate from the University of Virginia with a degree in psychology and spend all these years in the major leagues, with just a brief stop when he was with the Red Sox at Pawtucket. Javier Lopez from San Juan, Puerto Rico. 2-2. Ground foul. For years we would watch Lopez come in, and no matter how good the left-hand hitter, he would get him out. Been with the Giants for the last 7 years. Two balls, two strikes, two out, two on. 9-4 Dodgers. 3-2. Big pitch for Javi has always been a sinker, but he also has the fastball change, bit of a slider and a curve. Runners go, and Adrian strikes out. So no runs, two left, but 2 runs in on this. The home run by Andrew Toll with Reddick aboard. And the Dodgers take a 9-4 lead into the 9th inning. Runs. Remember that last road trip, they began in Philadelphia and scored 15 in the first game. And the last game of the road trip in Cincinnati, they scored 18. And they come home tonight and have scored 9 against a game started by, of all people, Madison Bumgarner. So Kenley Jansen will now try to get some outs. It will be Joe Panik, Connor Gillespie, and then Denard Span. Panik, infield single, walked, grounded out, scored a run, so he has scored in 8 straight Giant Dodger games. Small in consolation when they're down by 5. 1 ball and no strikes. That's a strike at 91. 1 ball and 1 strike. Panic came into the game hitting .246. 1 for 2. He'll pick up a couple of points. That's a little low. 2-1. Johnny Cueto, Rich Hill tomorrow night. High, that might have been out of the strike zone. 2-2. Panic a little annoyed at himself, I think. 2 balls and 2 strikes to Joe. Little pop fly. Seager angling out and calling. So Panic pops it up, 1 down. Connor Gillespie, who was announced, and then the announcement was waved off when we heard that announcement, and then he left for Adrianza, and we wondered whether he had been officially entered in the game, but the umpire said no. So here's Connor now with 1 out in the 9th, hitting .258. Oh, and 1. Connor hitting .290 as a starter. He's made 29 starts. However, he has started just 1 of San Francisco's last 17 games. And fouled away. 0-2 the count to Connor Gillespie. So Jansen made 1 pitch and Nunez swung at it and flied out. Then he got Panic. He has made 8 pitches and he's ahead of Gillespie. No balls, 2 strikes. And ball 1. Gillespie still has not wear batting gloves. He never has. That curveball is strike 3. So Connor from Nebraska, he said when he was in high school, you couldn't wear gloves or your whole club would really get all over you. Nebraska, tough part of the country with weather. Though has never worn them. However, down he goes. And the batter now is Denard Span. Jansen has made only 10 pitches. He has gotten 3 outs, so he needs 1 more to wrap it up. Span single to right, walk, grounded out, hit into a double play. The double play came in the 6th inning after the Giants had tied up the game. Actually, just to be more accurate, he hit into the double play after the Giants scored their 4th run and trailed by 1. So 46,899 up and at 'em. Game 1 of the 3, and the Dodgers a strike away from winning it 9-4. Fastball whacked to right, down the line, and goes fair. Home run for Denard Span to make it 9-5 Dodgers. That was just a line drive straight down the line. So Span has a walk, a single, and a home run tonight. That is his 8th home run.
Number 16,
The rare home run given up by Kenley Jansen. Rare indeed. That's only the 3rd home run that Kenley has given up this year. So here's Pagan. Fly to left, single to center, single to left, lined out to right. And ball 1. Pagan 2 for 4, knocked in a run and scored 1. On deck, Brandon Belt. 9-5 Dodgers. 2 out in the 9th. And a little pop fly. Seager started back. Now comes in. And that'll be that. So the total's 9 runs and 14 hits for the Dodgers. 5 runs, 9 hits for the Giants. And the Dodgers say, look at us. We're now 2 games in front. But of course, that's 1 of the 9 remaining. So 8 left. Jansen, by the way, came in and made 15 pitches. And I would think a lot of outstanding players, but tonight we would give the player of the game honor to Adrian Gonzalez. He singled in a run, had a scoring fly ball, and then had a key base hit with the bases loaded to drive in 2 more. So it's Gonzalez night, it's the Dodgers night. Tomorrow night they'll start it again, Johnny Cueto and Rich Hill. Till then, we wish you all a very pleasant good evening, everybody.